welcome to ABA Inside Track, the podcast that's like reading in your car, but safer. I'm your host, Robert Perry Cruz, and with me as always are my fabulous co-hosts.
Hey Rob, it's Diana.
Hi, it's Jacqueline.
Hey guys.
Jackie's too busy maintaining her online social media presence to tune in.
That's right.
Get off LinkedIn. LinkedIn. So, for those of you new to the show, ABA Inside Track is a podcast from the minds of us behavior analysts talking about research in the field of behavior analysis. And today we decided, because all we're always doing are these online posts, we should probably look into whether there are any ethical boundaries that we should pay attention to in relations to online media. So, we found some.
Is that how that happened?
That's exactly how that happened.
You thought maybe we should check in to see if there are any guidelines we should follow?
I figured, we're 51 episodes in. We should probably figure out if we're supposed to be doing this at all. And lo and behold, we found some articles about social media and the ethics of using social media for behavior analysts. So here we are talking about social media.
And ethics.
Which
is an important point, because that means that this episode is an ethics episode for Ethics CEU. Credit.
Ethics.
We have an ethical responsibility.
Oh, God, that sounds like some sort of 70s ecology song.
That was pretty good.
Please,
Thanks.
no. So we're going to be talking about 3 articles today, and let me tell you what they are so you can read along. But not read along if you're driving. But, read along after or before you listen to the rest of this episode. Those articles are Blurred Lines, Ethical Implications of Social Media for Behavior Analysts by O'Leary, Miller, Olive, and Kelly from Behavior Analysis and Practice 2017. Then, Online Professionalism and the Mirror of Social Media by Grayson, Kind, and Chretien from the Journal of General Internal Medicine 2010. And finally, It's Your Own Risk, Medical Students' Perspectives on Online Professionalism by Chretien, Goldman, Beckman, and Kind from Academic Medicine 2010.
I think that one you're supposed to say, Chretien, Goldman, Beckman, and Kind.
Oh, that's good. But I don't think they meant for the names to be sung.
You never know.
Maybe they did.
That's probably why they ordered them that way.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yep.
Some of these articles are a little bit older, and even the Blurred Lines article, which came out in 2017, they mention this, but they're already sort of been superseded, some of the content, by the updates to the BACB Guidelines for Ethical Conduct. So we're going to try
blew past those guidelines.
Yep. So we're going to try to update these articles a little bit as we go, so that they are of the most value to you. Because 2010, even in 2010, the articles written in 2010, there was a lot of,
oh my God,
most people are using Facebook. They feel like they have to use Facebook. And yeah, everybody uses Facebook. I mean, they've moved on, and everyone uses Twitter, and then everyone uses LinkedIn, and everyone uses Instagram.
They didn't even bring up Instagram.
I don't even know if Instagram was around in 2010.
Yeah, they didn't even bring up Instagram on these.
Did
they
that
didn't
exist?
have it.
No, that's why it wasn't there, guys.
Yeah, anything that you write about the internet immediately, by the time it comes to print, sounds completely obsolete.
Yeah. It's like why when people write those great articles and like, how do you use Microsoft Excel to make awesome graphs? And then the second it gets published, there's like 3 more revisions of Excel, and all the old ways don't work. It's too bad. Time marches on.
They kept talking about Web 2.0.
Oh, so that's just social media presence.
Well, Web 2.0 just refers to components of the internet that you as the end user can update and change. So Wikipedia would be an example of Web 2.0 because you can edit Wikipedia pages. So
How do you know this?
It was the word of the year in 2015, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And it was a stupid word of the year.
Did you edit the dictionary to add it?
No, I did not. Why don't we get into this talk about social media and ethics? So everybody's using social media, but if you look
Everybody's doing it.
If you look at the citations as of 2013, because that was, I guess, the last easily cited study on this, 1 of 7 people are on Facebook. I'm guessing that number has increased. Potentially it decreased, but as far as I could tell about the ubiquity of Facebook, it hasn't gone down.
1 of 7 people on Earth is on Facebook in 2013.
As of 2013, yes.
Right, but like half the population is like under 18.
They're probably still on Facebook.
Well, some of them are, but some of them are babies.
Yeah.
Okay, so as of the end of 2017, there was 1.86 billion active users.
So
How
that would
many
be
people are there?
how many people are we at now?
7?
7 billion.
So that's like 1 of 3.
And those are active users, so those people that have logged in within 30 days.
All right, so a lot more people use Facebook. As of 2014, there were 238 million members on LinkedIn across the world and 271 million monthly active users on Twitter. And again, that was 2013. I don't think Twitter was as popular as it seems to be now.
No.
So I'm guessing those numbers have gone up. So I don't think the question is like, is anyone really using these social media sites? Should we be worried about this? Because it is something that, yes, everyone is using. So what does that mean for professionals in the field? I think anytime we talk about new media, we don't have a lock. Behavior analysis does not have a lock on discussion of how to deal with ethics. We have to look at other professions. And certainly that's what the O'Leary article does. They go down a number of other groups. Do they have statements about our ethical responsibility in terms of posting to social media? And like one of them did. 2 now, because the BACB updated guidelines do have a mention of social media.
Yeah. Do you want me to go through and tell you?
Go through them, Diana.
All right, I will. All right, so they give us information on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 different related professional organizations to behavior analysis, and they kind of review, do they have a formal statement regarding the use of social media by professionals within their group? And if so, what do they have to say about it? So the first group was the National Association of Social Workers, or the NASW. Their statement is more limited to, they ask that their social workers inform clients of risks associated with information that may be relayed via electronics. But that's mostly where it ends for them. And jump in if you have other points that you gleaned as well. The AMA, you may have heard of them, the American Medical Association. They have some more information for them. They again say that anyone participating in their organizations needs to be aware of privacy limitations on social media and to, monitor what they're putting up there accordingly. They recommend that everyone maintains professional boundaries on social media, even saying that it might be a good idea, if we're talking about Facebook or Twitter, to have a private account just for friends and family, and then a public persona account that would be your professional account.
Because that's the problem nowadays, too. If you don't have a social media account, I'd almost be like, what's wrong with this person? What kind of mass murderer are they? They don't have a Twitter account.
Right.
They don't have a Facebook
Mary-Kate
account.
and Ashley Olsen do not participate in Facebook and Twitter. I know this because I read an article about them today.
And was it noted as like, isn't that great that they don't have it? Or was it, isn't this weird?
It was listed as one of the weird things about them. Yeah.
It's sort of like, it used to be kids playing video games was like a sign. Everyone was like, oh, that's a sign that they're going to be a school shooter. And then nowadays it's, if they don't play video games with friends, that's the sign that they're going to be something's wrong with that kid if they don't play video games with other people, because everybody plays video games nowadays.
Right. And it's understandable if people want to be off the grid, but it is pretty unusual. And if you are participating in a professional world, then likely you share some of these social media accounts because it also functions as a way to network with other people in your field. But so that's their recommendation, is maybe you should have 2 separate accounts.
Okay. We'll get more into the medical guidelines in 2 of our articles. So what else?
Yep. And
Who
they
are
also
other
say
folks?
don't post patient info, which kind of maybe you should go without saying, but they do,
Yeah.
they lay it out there. So that's good.
Okay. We'll come back to that in the discussion.
All right. Then we have the ACA, which is the American Counseling Association. And they actually provide a full section of information related to social media. So they get gold stars.
Bravo.
Yep. So their recommendation is just like the AMAs, that they do 2 separate, that people do 2 separate media profiles, one personal and one professional. And another thing that they note, which is a good thing to keep in mind as well, although it's coming from a counseling perspective, they say that professionals in the counseling arena should respect the privacy of their patients or their clients' social media accounts.
And not look them up. So if you have a client, don't look them up on Facebook.
Unless they ask you to, they mentioned in there too. Because if they're like, I need you to check on my social media because if you see warning signs, tell me. I guess you could do that, though.
Yeah.
That would require you to be spending like odd hours checking on your patients. So that also would sort of get into, I think, some of the dual relationship pieces we'll be talking
I was
about.
going to say, I feel like that's part of the dual relationship thing. So if you don't go seeking out your client's social media account without their request.
Yeah, without their permission.
Yep. So next up is the AOTA, which is the American Occupational Therapy Association. They do not put forth any specific guidelines. And then we have the ASLHA, ASLHA, which is the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association. They also do not put forth any specific guidelines.
I'm looking at ASHA right now, their website, and I'm not finding anything.
I bet they're working on them, and they're just not up. And then that brings us to the BACB guidelines, which we'll review in depth a little bit later on. But that gives you some background information about other marginally similar fields to us.
And while we did mention at the top that the BACB has updated the guidelines since this article was published, that to include some reference to social media, other than Jackie just checking out the ASHA page, we didn't really look into the other sites. So they may have updated
that's true.
their social media presence. So again, we're not sharing these to be like, shame on these groups, because this is just what's in the article. And we're not members of those groups, so we're not looking into them.
Yeah, actually, I dug a little bit further in 1 second and found that ASHA has updated their code of ethics since 2016.
Great.
And they do have ethical considerations related to telepractice, so telehealth, and what you can and cannot do with technology.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and you can find that on their website. So they also have included.
Thanks.
Yeah. So it is possible that all of these groups now do have something to say about social media, though even in kind of looking at some of the more recent updates, I think there's still a lot of discussion about, we're talking first steps to talking about social media and what limits we're putting on ourselves or our organizations are hoping to put on our behavior. So there's still probably a lot of room for, I don't want to say improvement, but a lot of room for change.
Yeah, I agree. And you have to think that the world of Web 2.0 is, I love that too, is constantly changing. So if ethics guidelines make a specific, like you can't post on Facebook or on Twitter, that could be gone in no, I'm not thinking it's going to be, but it could possibly be gone and move to something else. Like when we were just talking about when all these articles were written, Instagram wasn't a thing, and now it's a huge thing, and that's how people post things.
The cool people, yeah.
Yeah.
And that would potentially be even worse, because I think in Facebook you can put pictures, but it's a lot harder to use pictures. With Instagram, it's all pictures.
It's just pictures.
So,
yeah.
When we're talking about, like we'll talk about the idea of, you gave too much information about your job and where you work and your clients, and someone might be able to figure it out. With Instagram, it's like, I took a picture of my client, look at that, and I hashtag the hell out of them.
Oh, Lordy. Don't do that, people.
Hashtag my client, hashtag HIPAA violation, hashtag.
That's amazing. Hashtag please fire me now.
Another thing, and we're talking about these different profiles, another thing to note is that, some social media sites require you to be friends with the people, and you can set different privacy settings, but other sites are not like that. So Twitter, you can follow anyone that has an account. So if you have even if we just said, set up 2 different accounts, if your friends and family account has a name on it that someone could search and find, then they can follow you on that, and you don't really have control other than blocking someone, which can create weirdness as well. And Pinterest, if you're posting things on Pinterest, that is free for anyone to search and find as well.
You have to sign up for Pinterest, though, to use. You have to have a Pinterest account to look at those.
No, you do not.
Oh, anytime I've followed a link to Pinterest, it gives me one of those sign up for Pinterest. I don't have to be friends with somebody.
Are you doing a lot of pinning? Rob?
No, but sometimes you'll see great ideas for a room or for a paint color, and you're like, what does that look like? And
Rob's redoing his bathroom.
Yeah. You wish.
I do wish.
That's why she brought it up. Hint, hint. It's a disguised plan.
It's hard enough for me to audio engineer this show. I don't think I have time to tile anything.
No, but it's really, this actually is so important, and I've been really thinking about it due to some things over the last couple of years in the news, whereas prominent dentists or doctors have done something in their personal lives, posted pictures of, slaying endangered animals, remember that? And then coming home and everyone hated them.
Oh yeah, I do remember that story. Yeah.
Remember he a dentist paid someone to go hunt some wild animal, and it was endangered, and he shot the wrong one, and he got in wicked trouble. But it was really the guy, the guides.
Yeah, is that the one where they shot the most beloved lion?
Yes,
in the whole Sahara Desert.
Yeah. and he came home and basically lost his practice. People were like, if you're shooting
Yeah,
these
everyone
animals,
put like 1-star reviews on Yelp.
yeah.
Like, it was like inundated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if, that's his personal life, but that has it doesn't have anything to do with how well he would clean your teeth.
Oh, but I hate that. That's like the equivalent of when you're trying to buy something on Amazon and you get all these 1-star reviews and it's like, I ordered the wrong product. I hate this one. It's
Wrong
like,
size.
This doesn't help me.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is that if you have an online presence and it's not a professional online presence, it's going to affect your online presence regardless if it
Yes.
has
Yeah.
any meaning, to
Not
what
that
your
we are
current job
supporting
is.
shooting
Absolutely
endangered
not.
animals.
No, not at all. But, that happens. So you have to be aware that what you post in the world is going to be there forever.
Well, let's go
Right.
back. Let's switch into our 2 medical journal articles. We went off.
We did.
We went
Sorry.
off a little bit with these, but it was
There's not that much out there, guys.
no.
In trying to research and find stuff on social media
I
and
think
ethics, there's not a lot.
even with these being the oldest of the articles and probably having being the least away from updates about social media, I think these are important in terms of discussing how we came to where we are today in the sort of nascent field of ethics relating to social media. Because I think these 2 articles, one is sort of a bunch of doctors generally talking about ethics and social media for medicine. The other is, I thought really interesting, were interviews with medical students. So by now they're all real doctors now.
They are, yeah.
And talking about their thoughts on social media circa
2010 is when this was published.
So let's start there, because I think that'll give us kind of a nice baseline as to where we've come from, and then we can talk about where we are and where we're going.
I love that Flannery O'Connor short story. Where are you
we are
going?
and
Where have
we're
you been?
going. I only ever read Wise Blood.
That's a good one. Did you read Everything That Rises Must Converge?
No, I read Wise Blood because I was forced to in school.
She's one of my favorite authors.
I know. No offense to Flannery O'Connor.
I know.
It's just,
That's why I didn't read them.
That's what happened. So
Do you want to talk about the Grayson article?
yeah, let's do that first.
Okay.
So Jackie, why don't you start us off talking about Grayson?
Okay, so Grayson talks first about how the internet's been changing and now it's a place where everyone goes.
It's 2.0.
Yeah, it's 2.0. I wonder if it's 3.0 now.
No,
Oh, okay.
it's not.
So what they talk about here is that there may be some disconnect between what physicians may think of as appropriate on social media versus what they may think of as inappropriate.
Mhm.
Their main reasoning for this introduction was that it's fun for our friends and family to see us, having a good time at a dinner party or having a good time at a wedding. Maybe, doing some shots. It's cool and fun. But if a patient sees that, they may, then not feel as confident in your ability to take care of their diseases. And so
I was shocked at that. I was shocked
I'm not.
No. But I was shocked at the discussion of, wow, the internet. We sure do feel disinhibited on the internet, and we sure still don't understand how we leave these we leave these digital footprints. Right. I was shocked that these are still relevant questions. You would think, it was 8 years ago. We've all gotten past that. The idea that I posted a picture of myself at a party doing drugs. Everyone could see that, moron.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think they also bring up the point that because social media, you can do it in the comfort of your own home, you are less likely to feel the effects, like the adverse effects of whatever you are saying or doing. So if someone is putting something up there and then you comment, but it's kind of a mean comment or, inappropriate comment, you're at home, so you're like, oh yeah, I can say that, but then the whole world sees it, so there's a disconnect that you have to remember.
It's the idea of the audience, that anonymity. We discriminate depending on who our audience is, who our listeners are, and when we're online, we don't actually know what our audience is, or we assume our audience is the folks that I have personally said you can look at my social media accounts. Right. But you really need to assume your audience is everyone that ever lived and will ever live until all of electronics go down in some sort of apocalypse.
Absolutely.
Everyone is your audience, and you have to really think about it that way, because if you assume, oh, my audience, my buds, my followers on Twitter, anyone can follow you at any second.
Yes.
At any time, and it doesn't matter how old your statement was. If you wrote something stupid, someone's going to find it.
Yeah. So what they suggest, what the Grayson article suggests for both individuals and institutions, for individuals is if you are going into a field of study, you should probably do a real good
delete your account.
Yeah, a really good soul search of what your Facebook looks like, because people can go back in years. So even if now you've cleaned yourself up, You might want to look back and make sure that your pictures from the younger years are clean as well.
Right, because we're old.
We are old.
So our long history is not really on Facebook. But
right.
the folks who are coming into their professional careers now
have
their college years are on Facebook.
Yeah, my college years are not on Facebook.
No.
Thankfully.
There was no Facebook when we were in college.
Right.
So, but college is a precarious time for most people, right? So,
so you're finding yourself.
And you don't want to find yourself forever.
Right?
In Facebook, right?
Everyone else is finding you too.
Yeah, right.
No, it is true though. I mean, I have a younger cousin, creepy as I am, and he's on Facebook, and I stalk all of his friends and all of his potential girlfriends. And
you're such a good big cousin.
Thank you. And I look and see what's going on in their profiles. You know, I vet them to make sure I don't have to go and sit down and have a talk with them. But it's all there. Right? And I don't think they realize when they meet me there, I'm like, I know everything about you already.
Because their profiles are public too.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless they have smart parents. And then their profiles are private. And I don't know anything. But that's rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the digital footprint statement, I did not make that. I wish. It was the Pew Internet and American Life Project, which was cited in this article. That idea of the digital footprint and sort of thinking of our online personae as something that just stays forever, and how we need to be more educated. And I think as a society, we are trying to, at least in American schools, are trying to have more discussions about the use of the internet. But I feel like a lot of that is about the idea that Web 2.0 just means anyone can put anything online. So you need to be like a savvy information shopper,
right.
Which some of the other articles did mention that idea as well. But we'll come back to that in the ethical discussion. But what about the positives? I did like that Grayson didn't end with, and that's why don't use social media. It's bad.
No, he said that they we should use social media as a way to promote evidence-based research and promote the field and give someone a place to look for things that are real. I love that. And for instance, I am friends on Facebook with this pediatrician in California. She's not my pediatrician, but she's my friend's sister's friend.
Okay.
So they're both pediatricians, and they're like friend pediatricians. And I'm friends with her on Facebook purely because she promotes all of those like those evidence-based child articles. She's hey, there's controversy about feeding your kid honey. Here's the article that tells you the answer. And I love that. I don't know her.
Yeah.
One time in a frenzy in the middle of the night, I Facebook messaged her, and I was like, oh my God, I know you don't know me, but can I keep my baby in this room with new carpet smell? And she wrote back to me within like an hour, which is amazing.
Luckily, she's in California, so
right.
It's not as late for her.
Yeah.
But then she didn't just say, she was like, I'm not your pediatrician, which they also say that you should do. Make the caveat. Gave me a link to an article, and then made a recommendation.
Perfect.
Yeah.
She must have read this.
Yeah.
That's where they got the mirror. I think the mirror title, the idea that we should use social media and we should be able to look into it and see helpful information as opposed to stupid crap that devalues our fields, our respective fields.
Oh, I thought it was, that you're creating an image of yourself in social media. So if you think of it as a mirror, then either it's going to reflect an accurate picture of you or a picture of you that's no longer accurate or not how you want to be representing yourself.
I thought that too.
Oh.
But I think it's both that.
It's good.
Right?
Let's do both.
No, I'm pretty sure I was right.
Okay.
Sure.
Oh.
Let's just agree that I was right. That sounds fine.
Let's just agree that the doctors are probably right.
No,
JK.
I think both reads are pretty.
I think so too.
Pretty similar, and just that idea if you want to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and not feel bad. What about the It's Your Own Risk article? This was a funny choice because it did have the beginnings. It sort of was like, this is a study. We got these groups of first and second year and third and fourth year med students, and we had groups, and they were this number. What was it? 8 to 12 per group. And
right.
We had 60 something. What was it?
There's 64 students.
64
they did
students.
It in 6 different groups. There's 8 to 12 per group. They broke down whether they were first year, second year, third year, fourth year students. It was all approved through the IRB. They did receive dinner and the opportunity for free books for coming to these sessions.
I would do anything for dinner and free books.
I know. I was like, yes.
I'll be in any discussion group.
Sign me up. I know.
We're doing one right now. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
And I'm such a behavior analyst. I'm like, ooh, yes, okay, show me the graph. There's
And
no
then it's
graph.
like, these kids said this.
There's no graph, guys. There's
no-
not even a Likert scale
Mm-mm.
that they could
No.
have put in a table.
They did, however, go through and sort of code the general topics and give us 4 areas that were mostly spoken about. But yeah, they didn't do numbers. It wasn't like 30% of students endorsed this statement. It was sort of
No.
most, not that many, some.
My favorite, and I know we're going to talk about it more, but it said, some students felt that medical professionals were held to a high standard, and they gave a quote. And then the next sentence is 2 words. Others disagreed. That's all it says.
Okay, I don't want us to kind of crap too much on the methodology.
No,
here,
it's
because I think
it's
main,
just different, right?
Yeah, it was very different. But the main points they came up with were still, I think, really valid for the general discussion, and I think spoke not to just the idea of we need to crack down on people in these professions, the sort of human services professions, and we need to do this and that, because there were a lot of complex issues that come up when we talk about social media, and it's not just let's not look stupid online. We also are talking about this idea of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and should you be allowed to do whatever you want online, and is it fair that you're going to have an audience that then says, I don't like what I see of you online, even though you never meant for me to see this? Or does that even matter?
I think that you have to be aware of what's out there, and if somebody sees it and doesn't like it, then that's your fault. Unfortunately, right? I mean, like, if you were walking down the street and you were wearing a shirt that someone didn't like, and that made them think about you in a different light, I mean, you didn't mean for them to see you, but you were just walking down the street, right? That's a stranger, but still, that's what you're given, the vibe you're giving out.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be responsible for the things that you post and put on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the way
right.
that someone else is interpreting it is not how you intended.
Right. Just like in real life when you're doing a job, right? You may say something and someone may think it's something different than what it really is.
Yeah.
That's kind of just interactions with people.
Yeah. Some of the discussion points that the students brought up, I think we already brought up, that idea of when you post things online, they stay forever, and pictures of you from 4 years ago don't actually represent who you are right now. So even though I'm sure everyone, went to a party and did something they weren't supposed to do, if you have a picture of it, it makes it seem like this is you. You do this all the time, even though it might be, I did that one time and it was 7 years ago and I would never think about doing that now. And I learned an important lesson that night. Nobody cares because they just say, oh, I know you did blank, therefore you're a bad person. Might be the thought that the audience takes home. It did seem like the students were more aware of problems with social media at only certain times. So certainly when we hear like those horror stories about the dentist, this guy lost his job or his practice because he did this, I think that's when we all go back, oh God, what are my settings at? Oh, did I leave this as private? Ugh. And then we sort of forget about it, as time
pictures
goes
of you
on.
with dead lions that you
Oh,
killed.
I gotta delete those.
Yeah.
Get rid of those. And then we lapse because, nothing's been in the news about that. None of the bad's happened about that. What about some of the other points? What did you guys think? So, let's see.
I thought it was interesting that these were all medical students. That's what they're called.
They're medical students.
Medical students. They're not grad students. Okay.
They're not doctors yet.
So these were all students. So I thought it was an interesting look into what they valued, which might be different than someone who's currently a practicing doctor, right? But I think it's also a good reflection when we think about our own field and how young so much of our field is, right? That this is often the age group that we're working with when we're working with RBTs or grad students or new BCBAs, all kind of fit into the same age range of like 23 to 27, which was the group that they had.
I like that they recommended the guidelines. They wanted the guidelines, but they didn't want them to be mandatory. They wanted them to be recommended.
That was very strange because I personally would prefer that a group come out and say, hey, everybody, don't use social media. As much as I would be like, I don't like that idea. That's mean. You know what? At least it would let me know where I'm going to get protected by my organization.
Yeah, I found that really surprising too. And maybe, again, that is a reflection of age and seeing more so the consequences of behavior, right? What could potentially happen if you have these types of problems on social media. I think I would be with you guys. I would just want the guidelines so I know what are the guidelines. And the AMA does have some level of guidelines too. Maybe that is more recent than when the study was conducted, which would have been prior to 2010.
Yeah.
The other thing that I found interesting was they all agreed that anything posted that is a HIPAA violation or suggests illegal activity, everyone agreed that those were inappropriate. But beyond that, they had a big variety of things that they considered inappropriate. So they mentioned references to alcohol, sexually suggestive material. Most of those thought that that was probably inappropriate, but they weren't as clear when they were talking about speaking poorly about people that they work with, their school, or their classmates. Some of those felt like that was okay. And then others said that they didn't think anything was inappropriate.
Which I love.
They said you should just be able to put whatever you want on social media.
And some of their reasoning, I don't know if they were the same groups because it wasn't specific enough, but a lot of them, it was sad. They mentioned, I feel like the only time I have to myself as a busy medical student is when I can put something on social media. So to then say, hey, by the way, I know this is your only real social outlet, but also please don't really put anything interesting about yourself online, that might feel very punishing.
That was actually a sad part when he was like, I had a long day. My first patient died, and it was the only way I could tell people.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one of the examples in the article.
Dinah's shaking her head like she does not care about these med students. Dinah doesn't care about med students, everybody.
I do care about med students, but you just have to be careful what you post online. Maybe times have changed since 2010.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you guys said, these guys are all doctors now. They're all probably up to their ears in malpractice insurance and might have different opinions about their social media.
Yeah. I think one of the nice positives of this discussion with the students was the idea that everybody really liked having a discussion about social media do's and don'ts as a group. And I think it makes this episode meaningful in a way, because hopefully other people feel the same way. Because even with updates to guidelines, it's not like those are the rules for social media. This is exactly what to do. There's still a lot of,
it's true.
Do this, try your best to follow the guidelines, everybody. There's still a lot of room for, epic fails on your social media presence. And I think being able to talk to other individuals and having discussions about our specific field's guidelines will really just make the whole process much more comfortable, and as we come up to potential problems, allow us to resolve them rather than just wait till the next horrible problem happens. Everyone says, what a moron that person was. That's stupid. I'd never do that. We change our settings for like a couple weeks, and then we sort of drift until the next, quote unquote moron gets caught.
I think that's a great thing to think about, though, because I know in our program, at least at Regis, we spend a lot of time on like talking about like social media and what your presence is going to do to you in the future and right now, and how you want parents to see you. And I think we can imply what the ethical code for the BACB imply what they want us to say, but it doesn't give us like, if you're on Facebook, you can't be friends with someone, you still
have to do some interpretation on your own of the guidelines.
Right. Yeah. They've absolutely become a little more clear with this new revision of the BACB code, but I mean, it doesn't specify, like, if you're on Twitter, like, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So,
as long as it's under 90 characters, it's okay to put anything. When you get up 91 to 140, you got to be careful.
That's funny.
So, why don't we talk more specifically about the BACB's guidelines and the O'Leary article? First thing, I want to do two things, though. First thing I want to do is make sure that anyone listening at home for one of our patented secret code words, because P.S., ABA Inside Track is ACE approved. You need to know these two secret code words spread throughout the episode if you're interested in ordering CEs. But let's make sure you get that first one right now. And it is spruce. S-P-R-U-C-E. Spruce, the type of tree, or the verb to clean up and make pretty.
Time to spruce it up.
Spruce it up.
Or Howard Hughes' airplane, the Spruce Goose.
Or was it moose? Or am I thinking of the DuckTales equivalent of that plane?
It was goose.
Okay. The second thing I want to do before we switch into the BACB Guidelines is take a little break, because this has been some heated ethical discussion. We'll be right right back.
Hey, ABA Inside Trackers, it's me, Jackie.
And it's me, Diana. Jackie, I'm really excited to be joining you in this commercial because I've also started my career path at Regis.
Yay! Yes, that's right, folks. If you want to start an exciting career in applied behavior analysis, you should check out the Master's and Certificate program in Applied Behavior Analysis at Regis College. You can learn from both Diana and me. Here are some interesting facts about our program.
90% of our 2016 graduates passed the BCBA exam during their first time taking the exam. We think this is a really great testament to the program.
We started an on-campus autism center in fall 2017. The center provides behavior analytic services to children diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder right at Regis College. The center will offer employment opportunities for some of our graduate students. Students working at the center will receive partial tuition remission.
We also offer opportunities for paid clinical placements and graduate assistantships starting in the student's first year. So all of our grad students are currently working in the field either part-time or full-time.
Yes, we help students identify their practicum placements because we think it's imperative students receive excellent training and experience in the application of behavior analysis. Therefore, we screen placements to ensure students receive high-quality practicum placements.
We are approved by the BACB to provide intensive practicum. Students complete at least 750 hours, but most complete much more over the course of 3 semesters. Across that time, students complete a professional portfolio that includes completing a variety of application exercises, such as conducting assessments, developing behavior plans, training curriculum, and more. This portfolio functions as a way to ensure students are learning the essentials of being an effective behavior analyst and is a great way to showcase your work at job interviews upon graduation. I love it.
Students enroll in 2 courses per semester and graduate in a little under 2 years. Our courses are offered in traditional classroom and hybrid formats, which enables a student to focus on one course at a time while still completing the program quickly.
All of the faculty are PhD-level BCBAs with strong applied and research backgrounds in ABA, and all have published papers in respected peer-reviewed journals.
We ensure small class sizes so that all students receive personalized attention from their professors, and advisors are easily accessible to meet with students.
There is also an invited lecture series at Regis, which involves inviting outside experts in ABA to speak on specialized topics relating to practicing ABA, and these are really great opportunities for students to learn from a variety of experts in the field in addition to their professors.
And last summer, we completed an international service trip to Iceland, which we plan to do every other year.
Although we train students to work effectively with individuals diagnosed with autism, we also have opportunities for students to work with individuals with a variety of diagnoses and typically developing individuals as well. In addition, the coursework covers the broad applications of ABA with respect to solving socially important problems.
There are opportunities for students to be involved in faculty research as well.
We have a great location. We're just 12 miles from the center of Boston.
So check us out at www.regiscollege.edu.
See you there.
Keep responding.
And we are back to talk more about ethics in social media. So now that we've talked a little bit about some of the other fields, ideas for ethical social media behavior, let's talk about our own very specifically. So the BACB, as of the writing of the Blurred Lines article, had not put out the updated guidelines for professional and ethical conduct, meaning there are some citations in this article that are a little out of date. That's okay. We're going to bring them up to speed. And there are actually statements in our current guidelines that do speak a bit to social media. So, Jackie, you had those up. Could let's share those real quick before we get started on the overall rest of the discussion.
So something that's new in the updated guidelines as of 2016, January 2016, is now Guideline 8. is public statements. And public statements include or but not limited to paid or unpaid advertising, brochures, printed matter, directory listing, personal resumes, interviews, comments for use in media, statements in legal proceedings, lectures, public presentations, social media specifically, and published materials. The BACB decided that we should not make public statements that are false, deceptive, misleading, exaggerated, or fraudulent on social media.
Strong statement.
Whereas before it was only in our actual speaking we were not allowed to make these statements. You can lie all you want on social media until 2016.
For 8.03 statements by others, we have to make sure that other people that are engaging in statements about behavior analysis are representing behavior analysis in a truthful light, and if they are not, we need to make reasonable efforts to prevent others from doing that if we don't oversee them, so calling them out on that. And then 8.04 deals specifically with media presentations and media-based services. So we have to maintain knowledge regarding the security and limitations of electronic media, so we have to make sure that we're being safe and following the codes. When we're making public statements, using electronic media, we can't disclose personally identifiable information concerning our clients, supervisees, students, research participants, or other recipients of our services obtained during the course of their work unless written consent has been obtained. Even if it was someone that we had worked with in the past, we no longer work with, that still falls under our purview. I love that word. Purview. We want to make sure that we disguise confidential information concerning participants whenever possible on social media, on online presentations, or even like live presentations. And finally, when behavior analysts provide public statements, we have to say that these statements are based on appropriate behavior analytic literature and practice. So state the appropriate literature that you can find the answer to, and say that this advice or comment does not create an agreement for service with the recipient. So you have to specifically state that when giving any sort of advice via social media, and the statements have to be consistent with the code.
So that last one was specifically called out in the Blurred Line
Absolutely.
article.
Yep.
The idea that when we're talking about social media, the pro and the con is you have a huge group of individuals you now can converse with. The con is you can ask for free advice, pretty much, and everyone wants to be helpful, so they will probably give you free advice. And one of the recommendations was you probably should make a specific statement about, we don't have an actual relationship in which you are paying me for my advice, therefore I am just like throwing out some ideas for you. It's sort of the bare minimum that you would want to do.
Right, but I think that's something that we always forget, that you need to specifically state, like, we're not in agreement, so if something happens, it's not my fault. Like, I don't see a lot on social media in the groups of Facebook. There's many of them.
Yep.
And we're going to name them all right now.
Yeah, here they are.
We are not, but the O'Leary article mentioned one group that they said at their time of publication had 9,000 members, and I just checked today and it now has 19,000 members.
Wow.
So that's a lot of growth in maybe 2 or 3 years since they took those data. What you read, Jackie, was awesome. And that's not to say that none of that was in there before. There are other places in which the germ of those guidelines that are now underneath the 8.0 section were already in the guidelines.
Right.
But they really carved them out and made sure that they were highly relevant to social media specifically. So I love that we now have that in there.
Yeah. Well, let's go over some of the other pieces that I think some of it's reflected in the updated guidelines. Some of it is still not exactly vague, but is sort of in the guidelines in a fashion that might not jump out to everyone reading them as, hey, guess what? This should also apply to your social media usage too.
Yeah.
So we're just going to give the new citations to the current guidelines. If you want to know what was referenced in the Blurred Lines article, take a look at the Blurred Lines article, but those aren't the right numbers anymore, so you probably want to use the correct numbers.
Yeah, so the first one that they lay out there is Guideline 1.01, which states, and I quote, "Behavior analysts rely on scientifically and professionally derived knowledge when making scientific or professional judgments in human service provision, or when engaging in scholarly or professional endeavors."
So a new one, they also have 2 under maintaining confidentiality. So maintaining confidentiality was always in our guidelines, but they've now added 2.06e, which is behavior analysts must not share or create situations likely to result in the sharing of any identifying information, such as written, photographic, or video, about current clients and supervisees within social media contexts.
Okay.
So that's another one of the areas besides the 8s, I like to call them the 8s, that highlight more helpful tips when we're thinking about social media.
All right, cool. So related to 1.01, the point that they're making here is that we as behavior analysts need to be using science to make determinations about how we feel about different things and how we're going to use, scientific information to inform the treatment decisions that we make. So the concern is that if you pop something up on social media and say, "Oh, hey guys, I have this problem. Like, what do you guys think about it?" you could get a lot of different answers. And we'll talk more about the responsibility, I think, on the part of the poster, on the part of the responder. But let's talk right now on the part of the poster, the person asking the question. That person is going to get a whole bunch of different responses, right? Some of them are going to be good and some of them are not going to be good. But the concern here is that you could take one of those ideas and run with it, right? And say, "Oh, yeah, perfect. I'll use a DRO. I know how to do a DRO. I don't need to know anything else other than that this random person on my Facebook group said use DRO, and that's all I'm going to do." So the challenge there is that you have circumvented looking at the literature related to that particular topic, and in doing so you may miss some of the more nuanced aspects of the literature that are going to say, well, first you need to determine a function for that behavior, and then if it's a more punishment-based procedure, then you need to ensure that you have additional reinforcement in place. Otherwise, you're going to see a lot of emotional responding that you don't want. Information like that can't be well portrayed in a post or in an answer to a post. And that's something that could be of ethical concern for the poster, right? So just using the internet alone is insufficient,
right,
to get your treatment and recommendations.
I've just did a quick little search of one such group, and a lot of the posters, like the repliers, just wrote recent research indicates, but didn't actually cite the research that helps.
Yeah. So, as a respondent, the problem with giving the answer is sort of multiple fold, and I think one of them is just the basic issue of if we get used to the idea of I'll just say online, I'll throw it out into the world, and someone will give me an answer. I think it weakens, and the Blurred Lines article agrees, weakens our ability to practice the behavior of understanding and researching science. It just sort of makes it too easy. There's no response effort involved, and you're not necessarily getting the most accurate information, but it's fast. And you know what? Sometimes it might work. You might just hit on everyone. 90% of people said DRO, so that's what I did, and it happened to work for me in this case. Why did it work? I don't know. The stars aligned in terms of I gave just enough information to get recently accurate treatment, and it kind of happened to all just come together, and hooray. So I'll do this again next time, rather than actually understanding the nuances of developing behavior treatment.
Yeah.
The other piece, though, for the respondent is that idea of you are not engaging in a professional relationship with the person who is posting. You, therefore, when you just write an answer, are failing to acknowledge, maybe not on purpose, but you're failing to acknowledge that you do not have the whole story. You have a lot of verbal behavior. You haven't observed any actual behavior. You don't know what this person has already tried unless they've told you, and they probably haven't because it's a post, so it's going to be short. Hey, guys, I'm having trouble with feeding. What should I do? You don't have any information about the student. Are they dangerously underweight? Have they tried other feeding procedures? Are they defining feeding behavior the same way you are defining feeding behavior in your response? If you had a professional relationship with this
just
person,
like
they would.
Our feeding episode 44, we gave all kinds of disclaimers that people should not just use our podcast as a means of going forth and making their own feeding treatment, because feeding is super complicated and complex and needs to be addressed in person by someone skillful who knows what they're doing. And we're giving way more information here than you can get in just a post, right? And we're still extremely wary of having that being taken out of context, because we do not have that type of relationship with our listeners' clients.
Right.
Which brings us to Guideline 1.05.
So 1.05a is behavior analysts provide behavior analytic services only in the context of defined professional or scientific relationship with an agreement. And if we do provide those services, we have to use language that's understandable to the recipient of those services. If we don't know something about a certain culture, gender, age, a certain disorder, then we are going to make sure that we get the required consultation or experience or supervision necessary to make sure that our services can be provided competently, or we make appropriate referrals so that that client gets the best services possible. Behavior analysts do not engage in discrimination against individuals or groups based on anything prescribed by law. We do not knowingly engage in behavior that is harassing or demeaning to persons with whom they interact with in their work based on factors such as age, gender, race, culture, ethnicity, such and such. And we recognize that our personal problems may interfere with the effectiveness of treatments. So if we're having any outside personal problems that are affecting our job, or if something's a little too close to home, we have to step out of that, recognize that, and know that it could compromise delivering services to the best of our abilities, and then make appropriate referrals.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very thorough.
Thank you.
So this is related specifically to professional and scientific relationships.
Right.
And the real crux here is that if you're going to be providing services to someone, it needs to be in the context of having a defined relationship with them. And posting something on as a response to someone's question on Facebook does not constitute a defined relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
And even if we say, well, we're all part of the same Facebook group, and hey, maybe that group had a disclaimer about, oh, we're all let's all agree we're part of this relationship, so therefore this information should be considered professional. Let's just say you still have that issue of you're not using appropriate behavioral assessment in responding to this post because you're just going off a couple different statements that they made. You don't have a full picture.
You've never seen the behavior.
You haven't seen the client. You haven't seen the behavior. You're just taking whatever information they shared with you and then throwing out an idea. So you haven't really followed your ethical responsibility to use behavioral assessment in planning a treatment.
Right.
And I don't think you can. I don't think there's any situation in which you can say, I answered someone's question about a treatment idea in which you would ever be following your ethical guidelines to using effective behavioral assessment.
Right. Or if you recommended articles for them then to read and then make their own decision. So you said,
well, that you could do.
Yeah, so that's a way that you could be effective on Facebook.
Yep.
One part of the guideline that I think could be gray when you're thinking about social media is 1.06 multiple relationships. Because we are not supposed to be, we're not supposed to have multiple relationships, and that seems pretty clear when you're in real life, right? So I know I can't be friends with my parents, like my student's mom or dad, or I can't provide service with anyone that I know, and I can't give gifts. But can I be friends on Facebook with them?
No.
Right? Because it's not a real friendship. It's just clicking accept.
Yeah.
And sometimes families want to be friends with you on Facebook, but I think that's like a gray area. It doesn't say like you cannot click accept friend in this situation. Right? In here.
Right. No, in there it does not lay it out that clearly, but I think that you shouldn't.
Oh, I agree.
100%. There's always the potential, because you could say, sure, accept whatever, and then they never look at your Facebook page and you never look at their Facebook page, but they keep coming back to this idea of, is there a potential ethical violation? If maybe they'll never look at your page. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll start posting things on your wall. And even if they start posting, here's a picture of my kid. Remember when you helped with this problem or that problem?
Yeah, and they lay out some examples in the article. So each of these things that we were going over, there are some examples too that you should totally read O'Leary et al. So you can kind of see in more detail what they're talking about. But in this area, just like you said, Rob, it's like, maybe a parent would never look at your Facebook page and you would never look at theirs, but they could also see something that you post that changes their opinion of you and maybe doesn't trust you as a provider for them, or maybe you see something on their page that makes you feel differently towards the family based on their beliefs.
Yeah.
Right.
This also can hold true for parents and their therapists as well. So it's important to share this information with those people who are doing direct care for you so they know the same guidelines to follow. And another good point, too, is that it's a relationship that should be carefully guarded when you're a supervisor and a supervisee as well, or a teacher and a student as well. For the same reasons. You don't want to have something color your impression of someone that you're supervising or teaching. It's just good practice.
Yeah, I don't think we think about it too much in terms of the supervisor-supervisee relationship, because we think about it more with our clients and our consumers. We want to make sure that we protect them and we protect our services with them, but I don't think we think about it with other professionals. The idea that you can hurt your actual professional relationships online as well, and create the dual relationships there.
I mean, I let everyone know beforehand that I'm not going to friend any requests from someone that I supervise.
I know you guys all want to friend request me, but don't, for ethical reasons. That's why I don't have very many friends on Facebook. For ethical reasons.
Very ethically sound. It's not that I'm not cool. Once they graduate, when they're not your supervisee anymore, then you can friend them on Facebook.
Yep. But if they ever come back into a role under you where you're the supervisor again, you guys have to be unfriends.
That's right.
So.
And parents as well. If you decide to friend a parent who you no longer work with their child, if they ever come back into that relationship with you, you're going to have to defriend.
Yeah. I think guideline was 2 years. Like, use 2 years as kind of your barometer. Past 2 years of having those relationships.
Okay. I don't know if I knew that one specifically. That seems like a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
I also have Guideline 2.9 written down, which is related to assessment.
Yeah, it's actually related to treatment and intervention efficacy.
Oh, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah. So here, clients have the right to effective treatment, and we have the obligation to advocate for and educate the client about scientifically supported, most effective treatment procedures, and they have to be validated for both long-term and short-term benefits. We also need to make sure that we review and appraise the effects of any treatment about which we're aware that might impact the goals of behavior change program, and their possible impacts on the behavior change program to the extent possible.
Great. And that's if we have an established relationship with that client, right? That doesn't mean that every post you see on Facebook, you need to respond with this level of detail. But if you are choosing to engage in these interactions on social media, then you should not be telling people online what they should do if they have a problem. You should be directing them towards what the process of treatment would be for someone in that situation, and then ideally referring them to resources where they can further develop their own opinions about what's best for them in their personal situation.
I sort of like the reference to when you are looking to ask for information, wouldn't it make more sense to just email leaders in your field who are experts in that area or experts related to the question you have? Just email them directly. Certainly you might not get a response because, some of the individuals in our field are super busy and may not be able to respond quickly to your request for information. But most people will write back to you in a decent amount of time. And then, O'Leary mentions this, then you've built a relationship, a meaningful professional relationship, rather than just sort of throwing your question out into the ether and hoping for the best. And then who knows who's responding to you.
One time someone gave me this, what is it, antidote?
Anecdote?
Anecdote.
Anecdote.
Whatever, guys. I don't need words. Wouldn't it be weird if you were on Facebook and you came across a medical site and you found someone asking a question about your specific, disease? Like, hey, I have a 36-year-old patient who's a female and she lives in Massachusetts, and, what should I do about that? How would you feel if somebody was, doing that on social media? The same thing could happen
totally
with our clients, because our names are right there on our feed.
Absolutely.
So
and just because it's a group on Facebook for behavior analysts, that anyone can join those groups,
right? Yeah. So I just thought that was nice to think about it in terms of what would you want to see,
or it's your kids' information.
Oh yeah. That's even worse.
And I think we've sort of gone beyond just the idea of don't post confidential information, because that one seems like a no-brainer. But in this day and age, it wouldn't take very much work for anyone to figure out, even if you were trying to sort of lightly mask who you're talking about, it'd be pretty easy to figure out who it is if you really wanted to. Because, our names are online. You can figure out where we work from all the, LinkedIn posts we have and from any other social post we have. And it probably says on our Facebook page, I work for the blank. And then you just have to look at, okay, what age range? Did they mention age range? Did they mention type of disability? You could probably figure it out if you really wanted to. And you think, no one's going to want to do that. That's silly. But again, the potential is there. And that's what we should be worried about.
The other thing that they mentioned, and we're going to mention related to 2.09 guideline, is if you're talking about a particular treatment and you think that this sounds like it would be perfect for this situation that's been put forward, you do not want to make claims about that treatment effectiveness for that client that you, again, do not know, have not seen, don't know any of the other information about. And so even though you think that this DRO is magic and it works every single time you use it, you should not say, you should definitely use the DRO, it works every time.
DROs never work every time.
I know, I'm using the example because it's dumb.
Because I hate DROs.
I know you hate DROs.
Slap a DRO on it. Sorry.
Exactly. We've talked a little bit about Guideline 8, and then they also mention what's now Guideline 6 and 7, which are the overall guidelines for ethics related to the field of behavior analysis, just to kind of cover all the bases.
Right. So Guideline 6 talks about our responsibility to the profession of behavior analysis, where we need to affirm the principles of behavior analysis across our real life and our professional life. And we need to disseminate behavior analysis, making it available to the public through presentations, discussions, and other media such as social media. And Guideline 7 talks specifically about our ethical responsibilities to our colleagues, whether they're behavior analytic or not. So we have to promote an ethical culture. We have to make sure that if we are making ethical violations or others are making ethical violations, what we do to make sure that those things are resolved in a timely manner.
And then they also mention just generally don't post inappropriate things on Facebook, like don't talk badly about your coworkers, the places that you work, don't mention things about clients, etc. So the type of things that we've kind of brushed on, but they go ahead and lay them out there and say people have lost their jobs because the types of things that they've posted where they thought it was private and it wasn't. Yeah. So just don't say anything on social media that could get you fired.
Well, even more so nowadays, I think the problem becomes we live in a culture where the contingencies of what we're saying and the audience that we expect that we are speaking to can change at a moment's notice without your intention. So I reading this, I sort of was reminded of the CEO of PepsiCo, I'm blanking on her name, Inui, I think her name is, and she did an interview with Freakonomics, and she was sort of talking about some of their initiatives related to chips, specifically Doritos, and talking about how, looking at their market research, males eat Doritos like this and females eat Doritos like that.
Oh, now they're going to make a new female Dorito. Did you see that?
They're not going to make a new female Dorito, Jackie.
I know, but that's where I was.
But that was
Lady Doritos.
That never was mentioned. That's not actually a product that exists. And Pepsi's response was, we already make a Dorito for ladies. It's called Doritos.
Good job,
but because
Pepsi.
it was something that was posted in a podcast that was popular, I think it was like a British newspaper wrote, CEO of PepsiCo wants to make a new Doritos just for ladies. And I mean, she mentioned like, women would like to have something maybe they could put in their purse. So she's
say
talking
they're too loud.
generally.
They get too much gunk on your fingers that ladies don't want to suck off in the middle of a meeting.
You know what I'm talking about, ladies.
And they want a snack that fits in their purse. She said all of those things.
She did say all those things, but she did not say, and that's why we're making a super sexist brand of chip.
They're pink now. Lady
she just
Doritos.
mentioned these are things that had been noticed in, I'm assuming, their market research studies. So what do they do with that information? Should they do something with that information? That's very different.
You don't call them Lady Doritos. You call them meeting Doritos. These are Doritos you can eat in a meeting.
But she never said Lady Doritos. However, someone reported that it was Lady Doritos. Therefore, someone ran with the idea that, this woman's being so sexist in these products. So the whole thing spun out of her control. And she, I'm guessing from her perspective, did not think she was saying anything other than, here are some facts about the CEO job and some questions that come up. And someone decided, they must mean this. Therefore, everyone thought, you must mean this horrible thing.
Do you remember the Lady Big pens?
I do.
Those were real.
Yeah.
Oh.
When you can buy pens just for ladies.
Because a regular pen is so heavy.
I know, and it's not as flowy
That's right. It's, it doesn't match my outfit,
or your style.
and I need a ladies pen.
There was a period of time when I think men and female versions of popular products was considered okay. Like, this is an okay thing to do. I think nowadays, if you're like, I'm making the woman version of this, people are like, I hate you and I hate your brand and you're a misogynist.
Okay, but Lady Big Pen was just like a few years ago.
Yeah.
But did people get mad about it? back
Yes.
then?
People
Okay.
got very mad.
But in general, there were periods of time when everything seemed to be the male and female version. Like, I know when I
In
was
the
a kid and a
50s.
teenager. No, when I was a kid and a teenager, I feel like the products were always, this is the man's product, this is the woman's version of the product.
I think this is still happening, Rob.
No, I understand that's still happening. But nowadays, I feel like if you posted that, or even if you looked back on that, you'd say, that company was so short-sighted and stupid, even though nobody cared as much when they first posted it. The fact that it exists means somebody's going to be mad about it, even though it's somewhat irrelevant that it even happened. So
I saw a picture that had two globes. One was a normal colored globe, and then the other globe was pink. It had a pink ocean and pink continents, and it was a globe for girls.
Mhm.
Hey, wait, guys, you can still buy the lady pen. It's called Bit Crystal for Her Ball Pen on Amazon for some money.
How much money?
I don't know.
Oh,
It
I'm just
doesn't
wondering, is
say.
it like a collector's item now?
But listen here, it says, someone bought it and said, someone has answered my gentle prayers and finally designed a horse or a pen that I could use all month long. I use it when I'm swimming, riding a horse, walking on the beach, and doing yoga. It's comfortable, leak-proof, non-slip, and it makes me feel so feminine and pretty. Since I've been using these pens, men have found me more attractive and approachable, and it's given me soft skin and manageable hair and has really given me the self-esteem I needed to start a book club and flirt with the bag boy at my local market. My drawings of kittens and ponies, oh gosh, have improved, and now I'm writing my last name hyphenated with the Robert Pattinson's last name. I really believe he may someday marry me because I'm positively giddy. Those smart men in marketing have come up with a pen that my lady parts can really identify with.
So here's the problem,
Thank
Jackie.
you, Tracy.
That's very funny, but at the same time, someone might read that and be like, who is this Tracy person? They're awful, they're terrible, and they're exactly what's wrong with the world, because they don't get it's a joke.
Yeah, but it was pretty funny.
It was
a
pretty
joke.
funny. No,
It was a
It is
joke.
clearly a joke.
The product
However,
should
if
be a
s-
joke.
But like you said, Jackie, if someone decides, you know what, I hate this person now, and guess what, I found them on Facebook, oh, and it looks like they're a medical doctor,
Yeah,
and I'm
right.
going to write a 1-star Yelp review because they're a crappy doctor, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
We could say, oh, that person's overreacting, but you know what? That person made a joke, and even though someone misunderstood it completely, is it still the individual who posted? It's their fault. They thought they were being funny. But if someone disagrees with their being funny, that kind of gets back to that point of, well, I guess they're not being funny.
Right.
But we're in a world where you are posting to 6 billion people every time you post, technically. So someone's going to think what you wrote is terrible. And
Unless you're
how do we
really
balance
funny.
that?
Unless you're really funny.
There's no one who's funny to 100% of people.
That's
most
true.
of humor is insulting at least some group of
I think
people.
what you probably should do is just be funny in real life and not funny online.
Yeah, don't write any of your funny thoughts.
Oh,
down.
I'm only funny online, not in real life.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I'm like, I'm not funny anywhere. So
let's do let's do a summary of
Yeah, so
their points. of
O'Leary
O'Leary's
and
points.
colleagues give some suggestions that have come from experts in the field regarding this. They have 6. The first one, this one, like we said, kind of a no-brainer. Real clients should be heavily disguised so that people cannot trace back and figure out who someone's talking about. Number 2, avoid making treatment recommendations. Flat out. That was easy. Number 3, instead of making treatment recommendations, refer readers back to the literature. This way, they can read the relevant material, contact the literature, and make decisions for themselves based on everything that they know about what's actually appropriate for the client. 4, if you are going to give advice, write a disclaimer at the beginning that you do not have a relationship established with the client and you're only speculating. 5, provide resources. So in addition to literature, you could direct someone over to, articles that or information on the web that has more to go on than just a post could have. And finally, number 6, provide organizational training for the folks that you work with. So if you have a company and you have BCBAs or RBTs who work underneath you, provide information for them about how to conduct themselves on social media as well.
If I had a company and I had a bunch of BCBAs working under me, I would make a policy, and it would be, don't be on social media or I'll fire you because I don't want to deal with this fallout.
That's why no one wants to work for you, Rob.
That's why my company failed. By the way, guys, don't post anything online related to AB Inside Track. It's too scary. We have to
Rob
stop
will
posting
fire you.
things. I'll fire you. We can't even post this podcast. I'm just going to keep it on my computer. You can email me if you'd like a copy.
Snail mail it, please.
Yeah, I will
We're
only
done.
accept written.
We're done with the internet.
Handwritten. All right. Let's move into dissemination station. And Diana, you had a fun idea. So rather than just reiterate the points we made of actually looking at some recent posts that you found online and sort of having a brief discussion about them and
Okay.
where they stand. Now, again, these people didn't pay us to do this, so we have no relationship to these posts. Diana just picked some that sort of got back to these points.
I picked some. So I thought we could play a game called Red, Yellow, Green. And you guys can tell me,
Yes.
based on what I'm going to tell you, whether you feel like this post is red, yellow, or green.
What screen? Go ahead.
Oh, you want me to operationally define what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Green means all good. I have
Okay.
no concerns with what's been posted here. Yellow means, I don't know, it seems like a little bit of a gray/yellow area.
Maybe we should use gray.
It looks like a bruise on your leg.
And red is, no. That was too much.
Okay.
Okay?
So that's the one like the medical students refer to as like, duh, of course you wouldn't post that.
Yeah, and luckily I didn't find any that were to
Like-
the level of
I'm just going to say yellow. Can I just
illegality.
say yellow to all of these? And,
You
and win?
could.
I have a client named Claudia, right like that.
no, I did not find anything
Okay,
like that.
that's
Billy
good.
Billingson.
Yeah.
And of course, I would never want to embarrass anyone, so I'm gonna try to sort of mask details related to these, even though they were posted on social media. All right, so tell me, red, yellow, or green? I found someone who summarized treatment recommendations for a student and wrote them and just did not list the student's name.
They only just put the recommend. Like, I worked with a student recently, and
Like, this is from a report.
Oh, that's red.
yeah, that's right.
That's super red.
Because that is much easier to find. They're not talking about like I generally like to use
Yeah,
this
no,
treatment.
that's
as
red.
because it's easy for teachers to use.
That's red.
Yeah, I thought it was concerning.
Who did it? Tell us.
I'm not going to tell you. I have another one where someone asked, can anyone provide me with some resources related to blank specific behavior?
You know what? That one I'm slightly more okay with because they asked for resources.
Mhm.
They didn't ask for recommendations. So
Mhm.
then people are giving them articles related to specific,
Yeah,
and so then they can do their own research, not asking for people what they would do.
I would say green. I think that's
Green.
Is that the
very-
color that you just
Yeah,
I
described?
think
green.
that's very much what we would like to see.
And you know what? A lot of the stuff that is floating around on our behavior analytics sites is like this.
Do you have some?
Yeah, do you have some
citations related
resources?
to-
Yeah, which I think is great.
Good.
Right? That's how we should be using our online community.
So as a group, we seem to be reinforcing the pursuit of scientific knowledge rather than the quick answer. Hooray!
All right. I have one. The poster said they worked with a student who engaged in X behavior, which I won't describe. What should they do about it? And they gave a little more information than
Okay.
that. They sort of gave out like two scenarios that when the behavior is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Then there were a lot of responses. The responses listed like 5 or 6 different ideas
Mm-hmm.
about things to do. And some people said, yes, what you just said sounds good. And then the original poster wrote back in there, oh, the parents said they don't want to do this particular treatment.
So I would have said yellow before reading these articles, but I would have to go to red because this is exactly the type of behavior that is really starting to push into flat out said to not engage in this type of behavior in the guidelines.
Yes, I'm going red as well. I'm going red only because you don't ask for recommendations because then, number one, it's red on both counts, right? It's on the poster and the postees. The posteries.
Right. People did not give a disclaimer. They just
Right.
said, you do this or this. Well, some people just say this worked for me.
But still, that's not what you're not supposed to say that, right? Because you don't know the client.
That's
you
talking
haven't
about the treatment efficacy.
right.
Yep.
You haven't observed the client. You haven't
You haven't done any assessment.
you haven't done any assessment. So everyone there is at fault. That's all red.
And then also mentioning that the parents
That's the part that got me.
don't want this treatment. I feel like that's the sort of statement, like if you really needed to say something along those lines because you needed other ideas or because you did some research and you had an idea, you'd mention something like, what are some, do you have research going into the cons of this treatment would probably be the best way to phrase that, I think. Because then you could look into, are there serious cons in the literature that should be aware of? Because a lot of articles are going to say, hey, this worked really well. Those might be the only citations you get. You might not get the citations for the article where they say, it worked okay, but here were some real problems that we as researchers had with this treatment.
Right. But if you get limited resources, then you can contact the authors, right? So that would be gold standard.
Yeah. So I'll let them off with a warning because I think this is no. I'm not. I mean, we're not. We don't have a relationship with these people. They can do whatever they want. But we're not. Yeah. If I were the guideline police, I would probably write them a warning and be like, listen, this is kind of a new thing that this is no longer okay. You need to up your game. But
I would worry about. What if a parent went on there and read that?
Yeah.
I wanted to do this treatment, but the parents wouldn't let me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have one that's actually not from a BCBA site, but it's geared more towards people who might be teaching and have students or even supervisees that they oversee. In this example, the poster did not, name the person, but they said, I have a student. And then they listed several personal details about the student, including their age.
Oh, yeah, stop. I don't even need to hear anymore. That's terrible.
I'm going to tell you more.
Okay.
Including their age, including some potential personal psychiatric info about the person.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And like personal relationship stuff about the person. And said that they were worried about them and what should they do.
Mm-hmm.
Read.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was read before they, you don't say anything about anyone.
Yeah.
If you have questions about what you should do, you should probably talk to someone in real life.
Right.
Right? Like, you don't ask the Facebook community.
Yeah. And then I have one more. In this one, we have a poster who tags a friend and says, friend and I are working on a behavior situation. They say we have 2 kids. We think they have their behavior has the same function. They're in a classroom together. And they ask for recommendations from there. Right? But in this one, I did a little digging and I checked on the people's profiles, and both of them list where they work. And one of them, the one who was tagged, keep in mind, her profile was public. So, she didn't even have to, she didn't post this, but by someone else tagging her, that now her information is all free to view. What do you guys think?
Read.
Yeah. I think the issue becomes, some of those components are sort of the new expectation for social media. So again, maybe you get the warning for like, hey, don't just ask for recommendations. But I think when you're talking about the public tagging of someone, did you check with that person that they wanted to be tagged? They clearly weren't planning on it. So that's kind of on you, but that's kind of on the individual who has a public profile still in this day and age. And I get that. Like that part I understand because that's easy. I think that's easier for us to some extent because we have an online presence and we kind of can give our opinions a little bit more freely because we do have kind of this, relationship with listeners. But it's tough to feel like I have to hide everything that's about me. But you know what? It's probably never going to be worth it. It's never going to be worth the trade-off.
So I guess my game wasn't very hard.
It was, though.
You know what? It was in the sense that I think if we did a pre-test, post-test, I probably only would have said read on the one where, this is this kid's psychological profile, and this is where he goes to school, and this is what his name and phone number are. The rest of them, I would have been like, that's,
yellow,
that's a green
right?
yellow. That one's not so bad. And then after reading
It's
these
true.
articles and, looking over the guidelines again, you have a lot of situations that would have been yellow a year ago. They would have all been like, that's not great, but just be careful. Just be careful. And now they're very clearly, in some cases, very clearly, nope, can't do that. And in others, just, this is not best practice. For your ethical.
And that's why we're doing this podcast, is because there's a lot of this going on out there that people may not know about and should know about. So if I have called you out and you've done things like this in the past and you feel terrible, please don't feel terrible, because we're all doing this together and trying to grow as a community and ensure that we're following the strict ethical guidelines that we have in place for the protection of our clients and ourselves. But it's new, so we're all learning.
I want to take a moment. I want to audit us as a group, as ABA Inside Track. How do you feel we stack up in terms of our social media ethics? Should we be putting more disclaimers about we don't have a financial relationship? Sometimes people do email us with questions, And when they do, we do try to sort of, here's the episode, here are some of the citations, here are some of the resources that we looked at after the fact. So we do try.
We won't be able to provide
to point
anyone
that
with
way.
specific.
Yeah, because no one's paying us to actually consult to them. So we do try to do that. I think we're pretty good that way. We all share the email account so we can all see our responses. I think one of the things that I know is always tricky for me, I do the Facebook page, and I try to find articles that are interesting, that are fun to read, that maybe give a little bit more in terms of resources. So I do give citations. However, I'm not citing research articles all the time. So sometimes I worry, is this article too fluffy? Is this too one-sided? And am I giving the impression ABA Inside Track supports what this article is saying? And sometimes I thought, I don't know if I want to do these posts anymore. So that's always something I keep coming back to.
One thing I think we do well, though, is that you bring up Robbie Do Bad Science Saturday, which I think I think that's actually a good thing, though, because you are looking at articles that do not support the scientific method, and you're calling them out, right? I mean, that's one of the things that we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Online is the perfect place to engender thoughtful, opinionated discussion. Right? So I don't think that we necessarily need to shy away from that, but everyone always needs to maintain civil discourse in those discussions.
Yeah. I try very hard not to put anything other than funny little statement or here's something that you can look at related to blank. I think the only one I really was very hard on, this is awful, don't do this, was a recent post on, the miracle cure with I'm going to give my kid bleach and it'll cure their autism.
One last point, I think, is if you are at all concerned about your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LO, which is for artists.
Oh, God.
Snapchat. Have an impartial person look at it. Go through and have them, see what you've got, what your online presence looks like, and they can give you critical feedback on what it is. I think that's a nice thing to do.
Google yourself. See what comes up. Right? Check to see what someone who's not your friend on Facebook can see through your privacy settings. So that feature's in there.
If you want the only thing to come up about you is the podcast you make about ABA, make a podcast about ABA and make a bunch of episodes. And then that's all they come up with anymore.
Oh, yeah? Have you Googled yourself recently?
It's been a little while. What used to come up was I wrote a strategy guide about a video game when I was in college. That used to be my top choice. I won an award.
Everyone Google Rob.
I won an award for my
just
strategy
click on
guide.
that. Click on his FAQ for the game, and then it'll come back up to the top.
That's right. Most parents find that they're like, I want that. Give me the guy who wrote the video game walkthrough. That guy knows behavior analysis.
He's got some time on his hands.
He knows all about that game. But again, that's something I did a long time ago. It doesn't reflect who I am these days.
It's part of your digital footprint.
I don't have time to make walkthroughs for video games anymore. I'm much too busy. All right, everyone. Before we go, I just want to make sure that if you are listening to this for continuing education credits, you get our second secret code word, and that code word is piano. 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 I'm going to tickle the ivory keys of this piano with a little song. Piano.
Ding.
Did you believe my piano? It was a good sound effect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, everybody, that brings us to the end of our episode. But if you enjoy listening to us talk about ethics and social media, fret not, because we ran out of time in this episode to review all of the articles that we promised we would in our last preview episode. So we are going to come back next week, no time for another preview, with some additional discussion.
We're going to talk about ethics, confidentiality, and how you can help support others in your workplace regarding those topics.
Yes. So don't worry. Don't worry if you thought we totally forgot to bring up some of our other articles from the preview episode. We're going to bring them up. We're just going to do it next week because we're already going a little bit long today. So we have
Thanks for holding us accountable, though, listeners.
Long-winded.
Don't speak badly of yourself, Jackie. It makes us sad. Hey. Well, until that time, though, please, we hope you enjoyed the show, and we'd love to hear your feedback, either with a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you download your podcasts, at our email address, abainsidetrack@gmail.com, on our Facebook and Twitter pages as well, or on our website, abainsidetrack.com. I want to thank Jackie and Diana for being here as always. I want to thank all of our listeners for listening. And I also want to make sure that we thank Kyle Sturry, who we totally forgot to mention, I think, after maybe 2 episodes, that he is the one who created that mid episode theme music.
Interstitial.
Our interstitial music. And we were so honored that he would make us something like that. And I don't think I've mentioned his name in like a bazillion episodes. So I'm going to make sure it's on our post from now on, because it's one of those things that just kind of slipped our mind. And then the other day, Diana mentioned it, and we all felt really bad. So Kyle, again, thank you for that interstitial music. And we'll have something mentioning you on the post so that everyone can know where it came from here on out. All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another full-length episode. But until then, keep responding. Bye.
See ya.
Bye now.